Hey there, Coachco viewers. I just want to say thanks so much for tuning in and watching us. Coachco has no way of knowing how many people actually watch us each week, so it's always a great encouragement whenever we receive a note from you encouraging us and letting us know you're watching. Also, with the summer coming, some of you might be able to get out and visit us, and if that's the case, we'd love to see you at 10 o'clock here at North Burlington Baptist at 1377 Walker's Line between Upper Middle and Mainway. And if you do come, please come by and say hi to me so that I know you're here. I'd love to meet you. Also, just an early notice, we have our annual fall fair coming up September the 12th. It runs from 11 till 3, and if you've never been to our fall fair, it's a highlight for the whole community. Bouncy castles, free food, free entertainment, and this year we're going to have a concert in the evening. Really hope that you can set that day aside and join us. And also, if you're on Facebook, why not visit our Facebook page and become a member so you can be part of the Facebook community, and we share encouragement and notes of prayer and praise and all kinds of stuff that just tries to encourage one another through the week. And then finally, I just want to say that if there's anything we can do for you and serve you in some way, we'd like to know. We consider you part of our extended family, and we want to know how we can better serve you because you matter to us. So thanks so much for joining and signing in and watching each week.
So today is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it, casting all your cares on Him, for He cares for you. His love is wonderful and unfailing. How marvelous, how beautiful is our God. Would you stand, please, as we praise Him?
Casting our cares, my cares aside, leaving my past behind, setting my heart and mind on you. I'm reaching my hands to yours, believing there's so much more, knowing that all you have in store for me is good. It's good, today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I won't worry about tomorrow, trusting in what you say. Today is the day. Today is the day. Driving my doubts behind. I'm giving my hopes and dreams to you, Jesus. I'm reaching my hand to yours. There's so much more, that all you have in store for me is good. It's good. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I won't worry about tomorrow, trusting in what you say. Today is the day. Today is the day. I will stand upon your truth. I will stand upon your truth. All my days I live for you. All my days. Is that true? Living for Him. And I will stand upon your truth. I will stand upon your truth. All my days I live for you. All my days I'll live. Today is the day you have rejoice and be glad in it. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad. I won't worry. I won't worry. I'm giving you my fears and sorrows. Where you lead me, I will follow. Trusting in what you say. Today is the day. Today is the day. Today is the day. Today is the day. How many believe this is the day God has made? Second line says, I will rejoice and be glad in it. How many are rejoicing? Oh, we're getting there. We don't have any drums today, so your hands are the drums today. So wonderful, your unfailing love. Your cross has spoken mercy over me. I have seen no ear has heard, no heart can fully know. Glorious, how beautiful you are. Sing it out, church. Beautiful one I love, beautiful one I adore, beautiful one my soul must sing. Powerful, so powerful, your glory fills the sky. Your mighty work is displayed for all to see. The beauty of your majesty makes my heart to sing. How marvelous, how wonderful you are. Beautiful one I love, beautiful one I adore, beautiful one my soul must sing. Beautiful one, beautiful one I love, beautiful one I adore, beautiful one my soul must sing. You open my eyes to the wonders you captured my heart with this love. There's nothing on earth is as beautiful as you. Do you believe that? Let's sing that again. You opened my eyes to the wonders in me. You captured my heart with this love. There's nothing on earth as beautiful as you. Beautiful one I love, beautiful one I adore, beautiful one my soul must sing. Let's sing beautiful one. Beautiful one I love, beautiful one I adore, beautiful one my soul must sing. My soul must sing. My soul must sing. My soul must sing. Beautiful one. Sing my soul. My soul must sing. My soul must sing. My soul must sing. Beautiful one. Beautiful one I love. Beautiful one I adore. Beautiful one my soul must sing. One last time. Beautiful one I love. Beautiful one I adore. Beautiful one my soul must sing. All God's people said, amen. You can have a seat. Good morning, saints. How many could I identify with that? All right, that's why you're laughing so much. And then I love the end of that, where the birds are chirping. That's our goal this morning, is get to those birds that are chirping. We all have one. You know, it's that space you go to look for that missing cap for that mattress, that blow-up mattress. Or that needle to blow up that ball that's flat that you wanted to play with. We all have one, that place that you look for a safety pin. That place that you go to look for the change for that needed coffee for the morning. What is it? A junk drawer. How many have a junk drawer? Now, if you're living in the place for more than 1 year, you probably have more than one junk drawer. What is a junk drawer anyway? I mean, who puts things in a junk drawer? I mean, after all, why don't we save some time and some space and just throw it in the junk? Now, how many junkies do we have here this morning? Come on. All right, too many pointing, not enough admitting. How many are bordering on being a hoarder? Okay, a lot more pointing. Well, I'm a renovator. So I've been in many homes, maybe not most of your homes, but in London, Ontario. And I can tell you that a lot of basements, before they get renovated, needed to be emptied. And a lot of times they had to rent bins, and I mean sometimes 2 bins, to get rid of the stuff so that we could renovate their basement. Well, if you're a junkie or a hoarder, you'll know for certain that this world is just a place, after all, for our stuff. You know, little place for my stuff. Little place for your stuff, a little place for his stuff. I mean, that's all you need and want in life is just a place for your stuff. It's a little place for your stuff. I can see it on your calendars. There's stuff to do. And in your journals, there's stuff to think about. In your trunks and in your attics, things stuffed in your closet, things stuffed in your junk drawer. Everybody's got to have a little place for their stuff. This is my stuff, this is your stuff, and this is his stuff. Now, you can see it. That everybody has a place for your stuff. I mean, we all have a house. In fact, maybe we wouldn't need a house if we didn't have so much stuff. I mean, you could just walk around all the time. A house is just a pile of stuff with a cover on it. You know, you can see it when you go up into an airplane. You look down out of the airplane, and you see a bunch of piles of stuff, all organized, a bunch of houses with a cover on it. Wouldn't want somebody to steal your stuff. That's why we lock our doors. After all they want is the shiny stuff, not the stuff in your junk drawer. They always take the good stuff. They never bother with the junky stuff. That's where your house is. A place to keep your stuff while you go out and get more stuff. And if you run out of room for your stuff, you rent a place, a storage place for your stuff. But if you're too sentimental about your stuff, you have to move and get a bigger house for your stuff. Did you ever notice when you go to somebody else's place that you never really feel 100% comfortable? Well, you know why? It's because there's really no place for your stuff. You know, and unexpectedly they invite you over for the night, and they find this little room in their house, and it was their college students that moved out's room, and they haven't moved any of their stuff. It's been 11 years, just in hopes that they might come back. And you sit there at night and you look at the dresser beside the bed, and it's got all his junk on it. Now notice that his stuff is junk and your stuff is stuff. And all you can think of is, get that junk off there so I can put my stuff somewhere. Well, you might notice this morning that I'm not preaching suppository. I meant expository. I mean, with the former, if I did, you know something might come out, right? but I'm not speaking expository. But today we begin a 3-week series on Simplify. An opportunity for each of us to dive in and make a change to simplify our life. Have you ever been to the point where you said, I need to stop? I need to simplify or change something. Or in your marriage, you say, we need to change or do something because where we're headed is not in the right direction. You see, one of the things I hear constantly from people in ministry, in business, and even in my personal family is that I am exhausted, I am overwhelmed, and I'm overscheduled. I'm exhausted, overwhelmed, and overscheduled. Now, I'm not just talking to the single mom that is working 2 jobs to try to make ends meet. And I'm not just talking to the type A business person that is juggling media and luxury and family. I'm talking to everybody here this morning that's said or saying, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overscheduled. From Google social media statistics, what do you think is the most common question that people ask one another here in Canada? What do you do? No, close on. When you're walking down the street, yes, how are you? Number 1 question used in Canada is, how are you? What's the number 1 answer, do you think? Wow, you knew that. You've been reading Google statistics. That's great. And what do you think the second? I mean, fine is probably the best way to close a conversation, to shut it down, right? Or the word good. I'm doing good, or well, or fine. That usually just closes it down, right? What do you think the second answer is? How are you? Starts with a B. Busy. How are you? Oh, I'm busy. Or how's it going? Busy. Number 2 answer. And somehow being busy has become a state of being, not just a state of doing. It's become a social status. It's almost as if being busy makes you important. It's as if busyness is next to greatness. Because we're no longer good, we're busy. We're great. And almost next to godliness. Now, before I go any further, I want you to know that it's not a natural thing for me to live a simple life. You just have to ask Michelle about that. So what is Wayne Dewars up there preaching to us about how to simplify our life? I love to complicate my life. There are times that I thrive, actually, on the chaos. And Michelle will tell you, the chaos of a complicated life. My natural tendency is to fill my life with all kinds of things and events, projects, making my life full. After all, doesn't God say, live your life to the fullest? He wants to give us an abundant life. But what does this mean, an abundant life? However, there's another side of me, and probably you can relate to this, that during the fullness of life, the busyness of balancing family, work, play, luxury, different things, calendars, emotions, leading others, even loving, wanting, giving, and learning, with all these things, there's some level of desire in me for simplicity that almost borders on a desire for complacency or a desire for something to be easy. Why can't life be easy or hassle-free? So there's this tension going on in us. Why have there been so many times in my life that Michelle and I have said together, let's just get through this phase of life and everything will be easier. Have you ever been there? Let's just push through this and then life will get easier. Oh, we're still saying that phrase. Yeah, I don't see my life slowing down to a sitting beside the pool kind of life, or sleeping in a hammock in a deserted island anytime soon. However, I do know that if we do not change the way that we live in our frantic world, that it'll become increasingly more and more complicated to divide between the things that we are accustomed to and the things that are important in life. You see, the busier and busier we get, the busier and busier we get at doing busy things and forget about the important things in life. We all want, at the end of our life, to be able to say, I mattered. I made a difference. I was loved, and I was able to love. So this morning I want to be a little vulnerable to you in order that I might express the point of living a simplified life, to being focused and efficient. In doing so, I want to share a little bit more of Michelle and I's journey together as a married couple. I think we have a little sideshow, so you'll just kind of work with me through this. Michelle and I got married in year 2000 after graduating from Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. And we moved to London, first home, first church, first full-time job in ministry, and first time being married, obviously. So a lot of new beginnings. And over 3 or 4 years' time, many people say it's 3 or 4 years or 7 years, something that's most difficult, but we found ourselves just being busy. In ministry, we found ourselves delighting, and our whole value and our person was being enveloped by ministry and the importance of it. And I came to the point where I began to make wrong decisions in my life, which caused Michelle and I to actually spend some time apart. We actually were separated for 3 months in our marriage in the first 3-4 years. It forced me to leave my job because my purpose was mixed. I didn't know who I was, what I was doing, what I really wanted in life. And so I started a business. I was always handy, grew up building homes and renovating and all that kind of stuff. So I started a business called Divine Construction, and we tried to live up to our name, Divine Construction. We had a slogan, building places, building people. And my heart was really to build a church in a business setting. Now, I don't know how many of you have tried to do that, but it's a very tricky thing to do. And so we set our hands at this, and at this time, Michelle and I were back together, and we were praying and seeking God to direct our business. We didn't want this to be something of us, but we really wanted this to be something that God would use. We were struggling at the time with infertility. For the first 7 years of our marriage, we could not have children. In fact, we were told that we had 3% chance of having our own children. And so Michelle and I were devastated. So again, we were driven to prayer and to seeking God, like, what is our purpose? What are the things you want us to put our hand to? So our family began to grow because at that time when we were praying and seeking God, we had a phone call from a friend of a friend who was looking for a Christian couple to take care of 4 boys in a house, all brothers. Their mom had schizophrenia and had moved to a hospital. And we really felt God was leading us to this family. So we decided to move to their place. We sold our place, moved to their place, and began an adventure that we didn't know what we were getting into. But this is the 4 boys when we met them. This is probably the only picture we have of them all smiling together. And it only took about 40 pictures at Christmas to get that one. But these 4 boys just built into our lives, and we found some purpose that God was leading to us again. And wouldn't you know, after 3 months of moving in with the boys, Michelle was walking down the hall. I could hear her footprints. I was like, oh no, she's breaking down. What did we do? She walked in the room. Her eyes were just full of tears. And she said, I'm pregnant. I was like, what? I was expecting to have to do the husband thing, to do the cuddle and have a conversation. She said she was pregnant. We could not believe it. So there we are. 7 years in marriage, no children up to that. In 1 year, we had 5 boys living in our house. Needless to say, we learned a lot about teenagehood as the boys grew older and moving them through to even college. And at that time, business was growing as well. At that time, we had 14 people working for us. We had a business coach as well as some designers, Michelle being one of them. So our life became a little more complicated. Their mother was getting back, moved into their house. So we moved out. We bought a farm property, which we restored, and it had the shop on it. It was beautiful. We loved it. It became more complicated. There was a lot more grass to mow. And there was a trail in the forest, and the boys loved to ride their dirt bikes, but CAS didn't like them riding their dirt bikes. So life got really complicated. We picked up a rental property to help subsidize some of the costs, and life even got more complicated, and our purpose got a little more skewed, and life was so busy, and
coming home late at night doing business, and Michelle doing consultations at night, and I doing consultations at night. Us volunteering, leading worship in the church still, involvement in leadership in the church. We started filling ourselves up with stuff. You know, each one of them probably a good thing, but each of them complicating our lives more and more. Until it just became too much again. And we started in business, starting doing bigger jobs for people, $300,000 additions on homes, if you can imagine it. And we had more guys and more trucks and vehicles and trailers. And I remember the day when one of our clients was off on a holiday, and we were doing a big addition on their home, and he was supposed to leave a substantial amount of money for the next payment in the contract, and the money wasn't there when I showed up. And he was on the plane, and I called him and said, "Hey, what's up with the next check?" It was about $40,000. And he said, well, I didn't realize you were that far in the process. And of course, we had dates for every one of the payments. I was like, well, the next payment is due, so what can you do? So he called up his brother, and he borrowed some money, and he ran over a check to us. And after that day, I never saw another dollar from that man. And then it just kind of snowballed. I had a feeling, now that I look back, that God was just orchestrating a change in our life. He was forcing us to change. And so our complicated life became, by need, very much more simple. Yeah. We had to close the business over the next couple of years. We could not sustain the losses that we were doing. We decided to sell our house. The boys had just started moving on into college, so really we were free from that. We had Bryn at the time, so there was 5 of us. And so Michelle and I said through that hard time, he said, you know what, God, all we want is for you to make our lives simple so that we can be big for you. We said it over and over. We prayed it. God, make our lives simple so we can be big for you. Don't ever pray that prayer. No, do. So we sold a house, trailers, cars, income properties, everything that we had financially, our investments, everything went to suppliers. My mom got news, as many of you know, that she was having cancer, so we decided to sell our place. It was perfect timing. Move in with mom and dad with nothing, really. We, as many of you know, we picked up a property down there, a cottage to renovate, preparing us for the next adventure. And there we prayed and seeked God for the next direction. And so God led us here to Burlington. And so, in short, that's our life story. And a few things that I've learned along the way is how important it is to continually seek God to make your life less complex so that you can be big for Him. Now, the worst thing I can do this morning is to give you Wayne Dewhurst's manual on how to simplify your life, or the 21 days to a new you, or maybe even point towards, what's his name? Billy Graham. Just kidding. Billy Graham and, Bill Hybels even, and say, you know what? Imitate these guys. They have simple life. But what I want to do with you this morning is to keep it simple. You see, simplifying your life includes one important thing. One important thing. One important thing that you need to be intentional about. One important thing that you have to avoid, any distractions, anything that'll pull you away from that. What is that one important thing? Many of you will say Jesus, and that's totally true. One thing is purpose. You see, the thing I thought more and more about this is that purpose really helps you simplify your life. Let's start at the beginning for those that aren't quite with me yet. Pick an object in this room, any object. One object. Many of you are still staring at me. Pick one object. This is actual thing that you got to do. Yep. Think about, okay. Now, does this object have a purpose? Now, if this object has a purpose, who gave this object this purpose? The person who created it. Now think about this object. Do you agree with me that you are greater or lesser than this object that you picked in this room? Probably most of you would say greater. If you are greater than this object in this room, do you not believe that you would have a creator yourself. And since you have a creator yourself, don't you think that he would have created you with a purpose? Do you know how many people in life go through life, and I truly believe they think that they do not have a purpose? And so what they do is they fill themselves up, they complicate their lives with business and all these things. And in so doing, they create a purpose for themselves, not intentionally or seeking God, but their purpose has been derived by how they live, rather than living out their purpose. Yep. So, the whole thing? Oh, so I'll start from the beginning if you want. Okay. So many people in their life have lived their life, which have created their purpose in doing so. So they've filled their stuff up, complicated their life, and their purpose has been driven by how they live instead of their living out their purpose. So we must be intentional about thinking about our purpose. Who gives us our purpose? How do we find our purpose? So what is our purpose? Many weeks ago, I preached a sermon on the Great Commission. How many will remember that? I used a flip chart for the first time, probably. And we talked about the verse Jesus said to his disciples, his best buddies. He said, here is your purpose. Here's what I want you to do. That all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. And what does he say? Go, right? Go. Make disciples, baptizing them and teaching them to obey everything I commanded to you. And surely, he said, I will be with you, even to the end of the age. And we examined the participles in that passage. And we came out with saying that God has been telling us to what? What's our main purpose? To make disciples, if you'll remember. That in all our going, it's not just go. In all our going, wherever you go, whatever you put your hand to, figure that purpose out. In all your going, that's where I want you to make disciples. Teaching and baptizing. I truly believe that God has given each of us a specific purpose to fulfill out his redemptive plan. He is calling us as a people to carry out this plan. And he's giving you a specific purpose. Now, many of us become disillusioned, distracted, discontent, possibly. Even some of us discouraged because we never felt we could get to that purpose. And we've all been discouraged at one point in time by busyness. Many of you are familiar with the story of Martha and Mary in Luke chapter 10, where Jesus says, Jesus at this time, he was on his way. He came to a village where a woman named Martha opened up her home to him. It's found in Luke 10, if anybody has their Bibles. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to everything that he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had been needed to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? And I love this phrase. I don't know where she thought she could do this, but she says to Jesus, tell her to help me. Like, who in their right mind would be like praying, Lord, tell my wife to give me a massage. I need one. Like, who's going to tell Jesus to tell somebody else what to do? Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. One thing. Simple. One thing. He didn't say, there's a million things and this is the top thing. He said, one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better and will not be taken away from her. Now I can just picture Martha in the kitchen trying to get Mary's attention. You know, I don't want to talk to Jesus. I don't want to bug him. Banging pots and, Mary, what are you doing? I need help, obviously. So many of us do that. I need help. Banging pots instead of actually sitting at the feet of Jesus and listening to what he's trying to say. Busyness. So we're going to take just a little bit of time this morning to do something that I found very helpful in my life when we had a business coach. Michelle and I did a lot of counseling over the years. I believe every marriage, you should be having counseling, whether you're going through a difficult time or a good time. a business coach or a life coach. It doesn't have to be like somebody that you have to pay top dollar to, but somebody in your life you trust as a couple to continue to help you work through different things. And I'll tell you, it's the most valuable thing, probably the most expensive thing Michelle and I put a lot of our money to, but we poured a lot of our time and money into marriage counseling, whether it was a difficult time or a good time. And then a business coach, or a business coach, but I mean a life coach. And this is one exercise that he worked us through. So I want those that are on the end of the aisles, just grab a piece of paper, pass them down, and there's pencils. We can pass them around. Now, this is a good exercise for everyone, so don't think that you can just skip this. Now, you can doodle if you want. Most of you will probably doodle. But I call this church work because it's simply work we're going to do in church. A lot of times I think we do the mental, okay, I need to change that, but we don't have something physical we can take away with us. So this morning, I want to do something just slightly different. So whether you're a teen discovering your future and going to college or university or what job, where you're going to move, how you're going to live, what kind of money you're going to make, whether you're a retired veteran looking for a purpose in the remaining laps of your journey called life, this is an important exercise for us to always be doing. It's just like scaling down the stuff in your house. And Fiona will know a lot about this in downsizing people's place. That when you detract and extract things out of your home, you start to see your house in a different light. You ever gone into a home that you're going to purchase and there's no furniture in it? For some, it's very hard to visualize what it's going to look like. But when there's strategic things placed, it becomes beautiful. And so this exercise is just like scaling things back, taking things out, and the more that we do that, the more we'll find what's important and what's beautiful in life. So I want you to make 5 circles, kind of in a circle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 circles on that sheet of paper. And in each circle, I want you to put something that is an important piece of who you are. Now, not of who you want to become. An important piece of who you are now at this time in your journey of life. We're not talking about a fantasy or a dream or the next best version of you. It's an important piece of who you are. And I'll just give you a little, these are the things that I had put in my circles. Creative, leader, a craftsman, musician, and family. Those are the 5 things that I put in my circles. So why don't you just take 30 seconds. In each one of the circles, I want you to put a word that is an important piece of who you are at this time in your life. So those that are done, I want you to put a square at the bottom if you have room anymore, or a square somewhere on the page. And I want a square on the bottom of the page or somewhere or on the reverse. And I want you in this square is to write an experience or describe an experience that you had in your life that you felt most fulfilled. It's a time of great joy, a time of you just really feeling that you are living out your purpose. And it includes some of those 5 things that you wrote on the front of the page. In the square, yeah. So a moment or a time, could have been a birth, it could have been a marriage, it could have been an event that happened, and a vacation, something in your life that just really stands out, that was just a key highlight of your life, a milestone. I know on Michelle's sheet she had her marriage to her husband, so no pressure. No, she didn't have that actually. Okay, then if you're done that, last thing. In the middle of those 5 circles, taking in consideration of this event, how it made you feel, and the things that God has created you to be at this time in your life, those 5 circles, I want you in the middle of those circles put, I am the most satisfied with my life when. Mine would read, I'm most satisfied with my life when I am using my gifts of leadership, craftsmanship, and music to help the local body of believers trust in God, and for me to maintain strong relationships with my love, Michelle, Tanner, and Bryn. That's my life purpose statement. So it's something, I am most satisfied with my life when how many have ever done this exercise before, or something similar, to say, I want to nail down what my specific purpose is? I'd hazard to say probably only 10% of us, whether in business life. What a crucial thing to do. People, you see that when you have a purpose in life, it helps you to avoid the things that you should not be doing. When somebody comes to you and say, like a Pastor Wayne, I need help downstairs, or I need help on Sunday morning, or somebody comes to you, say, at work and says, hey, can you help me move next weekend, or different things, we need to have a specific purpose in place in order to avoid the busyness of the frantic pace of life. Do you know, me coming to Burlington was kind of a shock. Now, I lived in London, and I thought London was a crazy place. I grew up in Chicago, or not grew up, but I went to Chicago for school. And that's city life, right downtown. You hear fire engines all night. When I came to Burlington, I was still shocked, because I cannot believe how busy people are in Burlington. People that wake up early to get onto the GO train to go to Toronto, and get home late at night, put their kids to bed, and then go to sleep. For me, that was an eye-opener. I was like, what have we done? What have we done in our culture? Phones ringing all the time. We planned that, by the way. Thanks, Pastor. That's just Pastor John. Perfect illustration. Can you not agree with me? I think unless you take a step away from where you're living, take a step away on vacation, or take a step away into somebody else's life, only then will you begin to see actually how crazy the things that you do are. When you have a purpose, it helps you simplify your life. I would challenge you to continue to work on this green sheet, even with your partner or your spouse, even with your family, is to have a purpose, life purpose statement that you can say in 1 or 2 sentences. At this time in my life, this is who I'm going to be. Now, I'm not negating that Jesus needs to be a big part of your life. He needs to be everything. You need to fully surrender. We're going to talk about this next week, fully surrendered to God. And then in the following, we're going to talk about managing healthy relationships. So I'm not negating the importance of having a relationship with Christ, but all I'm saying is, in that, as a member of God's family, let's continue to seek out what God has for us as an individual and our purpose for life. Now, having a purpose statement is all good and fun. It's all paper, right? It's only a purpose unless we're intentional about it. And this is where the hard work, that's kind of the easy work. The hard work is actually activating yourself in what God wants you to do. Does anybody remember the Happy Days? Who was the main character? Fonzie. So Fonzie and Richie are going back and forth, and Richie says, you make school sound like it's fun. Fonzie says, well, school's got some good points, he says. Smoking in the bathroom and cutting classes, showing my tattoo to the girls. Richie says, what do you plan to do when you get out of school? Fonzie says, I was thinking of becoming a cop. Richie says, wow, that's admirable. Fonzie says, it's the only job I know where they pay you to ride a motorcycle. So he had a purpose in mind. His intentions were probably wrong. A purpose is only a piece of paper unless we're intentional about it. So take 30 seconds just to think about that purpose statement you wrote down. If you did, I hope you did. And think, what is one thing I can do this week to change the way that I'm living in order to be intentional, more intentional about that purpose? You see, in Michelle and I's lives, when we worked with this business coach, it was rather simple for us because we, at that time, had a pretty simple life. We had sold everything. We were seeking and praying God. So really, we were just kind of wanting to activate what our life purpose statement was. And so God led us here to Burlington. And lastly, another way to be intentional about your purpose is to avoid distractions. How many of us can easily be distracted? Yeah, we have spiritual ADHD. We're so quick to move on. I mean, how many of us, including me, have started a prayer with full intention of just spending 5 minutes with God in prayer and reading? And zoom, zoom, zoom. There I am, off to thinking about how much wood I need to buy for my deck next weekend, you know? How easily we can be distracted. Is that because of our lifestyle? We need to eliminate distractions. So how do we do this? Well, on the farm, when we lived, you saw the picture of the red house on the farm, Tanner loved the camper that we had. Now, we had bought a 29-foot enclosed camper, mainly for the guys. We were building new homes in Barrie, if you can believe it or not, from London. So we would send them up to a KOA, and we'd put them up in this camper. Tanner loved this camper. I loved the rear bumper. I mean, it was a 1979 29-foot camper. This bumper was literally holding on for dear life. But not only did I like the bumper, what I liked more was something that was inside the bumper. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? No campers? What was hidden inside the bumper was the hose used to eliminate the substance from the trailer to the ground. The junk. The poop. Can I say poop on stage? I just did. And I think a lot of times in life, we do not use this. We just try to hold on to everything. Let's load up that camper. Literally. We need to eliminate distractions in our life. Simply having a purpose is not enough, but being intentional is. Bill Hybels lists a few in his book called Simplify. And he says a few distractions that we have in our Canadian American lives are physical health. That a lot of us are so focused on our longevity here on earth and physical health that it's a distraction. Not for me, or too many of us. Maybe education, or pleasure, or work, or wealth, or fame, or sex. All these things can become distractions. So I want to focus on just two quick ones that I think are a little bit more applicable here this morning. One is life phases. Each phase of your journey may have a slightly different purpose. And without a clear understanding of how God works through our seasons of life, we'll be ill-equipped to move from one season to the next. We are more apt to complicate our lives rather than simplify them by drifting through from season to season in our lives. When we try to shoehorn our lives into the past seasons that no longer fit, we work actually against the goal of simplifying our life. Sometimes we may even linger in expired seasons. Now consider the season that you are in your life right now and how your purpose may have changed from the previous season. Let me give you some examples. For instance, empty nesters have a great deal of work to do with simplifying or coming up with life purpose. Retirees have great work to do in this area. People who have experienced great loss of a job or a friend or even a loved one have great deal of work to do around life purpose. Even those that have been released even from oppression or alcohol or some other kind of addiction have great work to do in this area. Reorientating our purpose is important through life phases. It's the only way to be able to anticipate hope for yourselves in a new phase of life. So if you know you're going through a transition, even more important to reevaluate life purpose. It will help simplify your life. And lastly, negative thinking. Rejoice in the Lord always. Some of us are prone to negative thinking. I mean, some of us negative people are even married to negative people. I mean person, not people, singular. And two negatives don't make a right. You know how you know you're a negative thinker is when you're driving home from work and you say, that food better be on that table. Or that child better have his sporting gear ready because we're already late for their practice. Or you're thinking to yourself while you're driving around, why is everybody else driving a nicer car? Or wearing nicer clothes? Or when someone compliments your hair, you're thinking, what? Don't you like my dress? Negative thinking. How in the world can we cure negative thinking? Well, I came up with it. We devised a negative thinking collar that shocks you every time you think of a negative thought. So next week, I want everybody to bring $10 to purchase your very own. No. How do we cure negative thinking? There's an app for that, yeah, nice. Philippians 4 says, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God will transcend all your understanding. It will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers, sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is excellent, lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think of such things. Whatever you've learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will surely be with you. The importance of simplifying life and having a purpose. Our first installment of how to discover a simplified life is to find your specific purpose. Who has God created you to be right now? With all your life experience, your history, your family, loss, gain, who is God calling you to be now here in Burlington, Ontario? If I asked any one of you if you could tell me what your specific purpose was, and if you could not tell me, I would imagine that you would probably be living a somewhat, or at least prone to, a complicated life. Purpose is that important. It was shortly after Jesus told his best buds about their purpose, about going to all the world, making disciples. He said, in this world you will have trouble. A simplified life does not mean no trouble. It means being intentional about who God has created you to be. In this world you will have trouble, but fear not. I have overcome the world. This morning we have great opportunity to not only reflect on our purpose, but God's purpose in sending Christ. And I'm going to ask those that are going to come and help serve the communion at this time to come. You see, God before time had a purpose in place, and that was to redeem you to himself. He knew it was going to take a great sacrifice, a great cause. And so he decided to send Jesus Christ, his only son, so that we might have a relationship with him. God had a purpose. And make no mistake about it, that Jesus Christ knew his purpose, and he was intentional about it. I'll ask the worship team to come now. We're just going to close with one song. And as tradition here at NDBC, we always ask that if you are looking for someone to pray with you, whether it's around the idea of purpose or something that's going on in your life, that you would come during the song. We're going to stand together. So would you stand as we just conclude with a final song? So come out of sadness wherever you've been. Come broken-hearted, let rescue begin. Come find your mercy, O sinner, come near. And earth has no sorrow that heaven can hear. And earth has no sorrow that heaven can hear. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame, and all who are broken, lift up your faith. A wanderer come,
the grave. There's rest for the weary, a rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow, and heaven can. So lay down your burden, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your head. Wanderer, come home. You're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart. Come as you are. Come as you are. Fall in His arms. Come as you are. There's joy in the morning. Oh, sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burden, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Wander, come home. You're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart. Come as you are. 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 Amen. He's calling you to come. But at this time, you can go. So have a great week. It's a pleasure to see you today.